Picture this. It's just past 6 in the morning on July 18th, 2026. You are standing right in the heart of New Delhi at Jantar Mantar.
Which is usually just this incredibly busy, chaotic place.
Oh, totally. I mean, if you know anything about Indian history, you know this stretch of pavement has seen literally a century of protests, revolutions, and, massive democratic shouting matches.
Yeah, it's the epicenter for that kind of thing.
Exactly. But right now, in the pre-dawn dark, the city is completely asleep, the streets are empty, the air is just thick.
Which, in a sprawling metropolis of, over 30 million people, is an eerie, almost suffocating kind of quiet. You can basically hear a pin drop.
Right. And then suddenly that quiet is broken. But not by a riot or like a megaphone speech. A stark white curtain is suddenly raised across a protest stage.
Just out of nowhere.
Completely out of nowhere. And behind that curtain, hidden entirely from the street, a 59-year-old man who hasn't eaten a single bite of food in 21 days is spirited away.
Huh.
Yeah. He is lifted into a waiting ambulance. And the entire operation, from the moment that fabric goes up to the moment the doors slam shut, takes just about 30 seconds.
It plays out less like a standard police procedure and much more like a scene from a political thriller. I mean, the speed and the sheer theatricality of it are incredibly striking.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a really fast-moving, still-developing documentary script titled The Fast at Jantar Mantar. We're going to explore the anatomy of this modern protest, the incredibly precise mechanics of the state's response, and the fiercely conflicting narratives surrounding that tiny 30-second window behind the white curtain.
And before we go any further, we really need to establish the ground rules for today's exploration. We are examining an active, politically contested event.
Very contested.
Right. And the sources we're working from contain highly divergent accounts. I mean, we have the official police reports detailing the state's actions, and we have the protesters' claims describing a completely different reality.
Yeah, they do not match up at all.
Not even a little. So, to be absolutely clear to you listening, we are not taking sides today. We aren't endorsing one viewpoint over the other. Our goal is to impartially explore both the state's account and the activists' account, and really just treat them both as vital pieces of this documentary's narrative puzzle.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can understand why this man was removed with such, cinematic precision, we have to understand exactly who was removed and why his own physical body is basically his primary weapon of choice.
Right.
We are talking about Sonam Wangchuk.
Wangchuk is such a fascinating figure because he completely shatters the traditional mold of a political firebrand. I mean, he's a 59-year-old mechanical engineer by training.
Yeah.
He's an education reformer and a climate activist hailing from the high-altitude, freezing desert region of Ladakh in the Himalayas.
And he has serious global credentials, too. Like, he founded the Students' Educational and Cultural Movement of Ladakh, and in 2018, he actually won the Ramon Magsaysay Award.
Which is a huge deal.
Oh, massive. For those unfamiliar, that is widely considered to be Asia's equivalent of the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, and his life's work primarily focused on pioneering low-cost, ecologically sound building techniques. He figured out how to harness solar power and ice in ways that could survive the absolute harshest environments on Earth. Fundamentally, he was known as a brilliant, pragmatic inventor.
A famous one, too. I mean, if you're a fan of Bollywood, his life story and his educational philosophies actually partly inspired the character of Phunsukh Wangdu in the massive global hit movie 3 Idiots.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, but reading through this documentary script, it becomes incredibly clear that his life over the past few years has been less about whimsical invention and much more about direct, unyielding confrontation with the Indian state.
The real turning point was 2019. That was the year the region of Ladakh was carved out as a union territory. But crucially, it was established without its own legislature.
Wait, explain the mechanics of that for a second. Why does lacking a legislature push a local inventor into starting massive, life-threatening protests?
Well, think about it this way. When a region is a union territory without a legislature, the local population basically loses their democratic leverage. Decisions about their land, their environment, their industrial development, those aren't being made by locally elected officials who actually live in the community.
Ah, I see.
Right. They are being made by bureaucrats hundreds of miles away in New Delhi. So since 2019, Wangchuk has been the loudest voice demanding that Ladakh be granted 6th schedule status.
Which is a specific constitutional protection, right?
Exactly. It's designed to safeguard indigenous land, local culture, and natural resources from outside corporate exploitation.
Yeah.
And he's also demanding full statehood to restore local democratic control.
And to fight for that local control, he uses, well, extreme physical endurance. I mean, in January of 2023, he subjected himself to a 5-day fast outside in sub-zero Himalayan temperatures.
Just brutal conditions.
Right. And then in March of 2024, he escalated to a 21-day hunger strike. He even led a Padjatra, which is like a massive foot march of citizens, aimed at walking all the way to Delhi, which was physically stopped by police at the city's border.
Yeah, they didn't even let them in.
You know, thinking about his background as an engineer, it feels like he approaches protesting the exact same way he approaches a complex physics problem. He's using the hunger strike like a mechanical fulcrum.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. He takes the physical fragility of one single human body, places it at the exact right pressure point in the public eye, and uses it to exert massive, disproportionate political leverage against the weight of an entire national government.
What's fascinating here is how a man whose entire career was defined by ecologically sound, sustainable building techniques has shifted entirely to the architecture of civil confrontation.
Yeah,
I mean, he's still building things, but now he's building political pressure. By starving himself in public, he is actively constructing a moral dilemma that the authorities cannot simply ignore.
But applying pressure from a remote Himalayan mountain only gets you so far, you know. To actually shake the foundations of the state, Wangchuk knew he had to bring his physical fulcrum to the center of gravity, which is Delhi. And when he got there in the middle of 2026, he collided with a completely different kind of pressure cooker.
Yeah, and that brings us to the converging crises of 2026, because through the first half of that year, India was rocked by a massive, entirely unrelated scandal, which was the widespread paper leaks in the NEET exam.
Right, the medical exams.
Yeah, it's the intensely competitive national medical entrance exam, alongside several other major tests.
Now, if you are listening to this and wondering why a leaked medical exam creates a national crisis, you really have to understand the sociological weight of these tests in India. They are everything.
They absolutely are. For millions of families, these exams are the singular gateway to upward mobility. It's a zero-sum game where literally a fraction of a point dictates your entire future.
Which is terrifying.
It is. So a paper leak at this massive scale wasn't just treated as a bureaucratic or like an administrative error. It was viewed by the youth as a fundamental betrayal of the social contract. It basically signaled that the system was inherently rigged for those with money and connections.
And that profound sense of betrayal birthed a new youth-led political formation with an incredibly striking, deeply cynical name. They call themselves the Cockroach Janata Party.
The name itself is just a brilliant piece of dark satire.
Yeah, it really is.
By calling themselves cockroaches, these students were leaning into the idea that the political class views them as entirely disposable pests. But at the same time, cockroaches are famous for one thing, right? They survive everything.
They survived the rot.
Exactly. The students were signaling that they might be living in a corrupted, decaying system, but they were unkillable, and they were coming to infest the capital with protests. They demanded severe accountability, starting with the immediate resignation of the Union Education Minister, Dharmendra Pradhan.
And this is where these two very different worlds collide. On June 28, 2026, Sonam Wangchuk arrives at Jantar Mantar and lends his massive moral weight to this student movement.
Yeah, he just walks right into it.
He sets up camp on their protest stage and begins an indefinite fast on nothing but water and a pinch of salt. He does this alongside 6 much younger student activists, and he tells the press very starkly, this is the 6th time, and it will be for 6 weeks or death.
Which is a heavy, heavy statement.
It is. But looking at this from a strategic level, I really have to ask, isn't there a massive risk here? Wangchuk is world famous for a very specific geographic issue, the ecology of Ladakh. By attaching his ultimate weapon, his own life, to a highly volatile national scandal about student exams, doesn't he dilute his original message?
It's a profound strategic gamble, for sure. But rather than diluting his message, merging his regional grievance with a burning national crisis effectively supercharged the entire protest.
Really?
Yeah. The documentary script details how, as his fast entered its 3rd agonizing week, the situation escalated legally. The Delhi High Court actually intervened, directing authorities to monitor his health daily and ensure medical assistance was immediately available.
Which makes total sense, because an internationally recognized Magsaysay Award winner slowly starving to death in the capital city is an absolute geopolitical nightmare for the ruling government.
Precisely. And so the site at Jantar Mantar grew from a single man's fast into an undeniable massive fixture. It became a centralized rallying point, not just for medical students, but for opposition politicians, labor unions, and all these various civil society groups.
It just snowballed.
Completely. By linking arms with the youth, Wangchuk turned his local Himalayan issue into a major centralized headache for the authorities in Delhi. It was basically a focal point for all national discontent.
Which brings us back to that eerie pre-dawn dark on July 18th. Because the protest had grown into this massive, uncontrollable focal point, the authorities decided they had to act. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the logistics of what happened next are just mind-boggling.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm looking at the documentary's breakdown of the police operation, and this was not some spur-of-the-moment raid.
No, not at all. The script notes that the extraction plan reportedly took shape under the direct supervision of Anurag Kumar, who had just recently taken over as Delhi's new police commissioner. Rather than a standard sweep, they developed a highly coordinated three-layer strategy to remove him.
Walk us through those layers, because clearing a crowded protest camp without starting a riot requires incredible precision.
Right. So first, they deployed a specialized team of plainclothes personnel. Their sole objective was the physical removal of Wangchuk from the stage. Second, they set up a perimeter management team in uniform to instantly hold the line against any protesters waking up and trying to interfere.
Okay, so that's two.
And third, you had senior officers stationed at a tactical control point near the ambulance, basically coordinating all the radio traffic and the timing.
And the level of secrecy is what really stands out to me. The reports citing police sources say about 30 to 35 personnel from the New Delhi district's special staff were assembled 4 hours before the operation, under the guise of a routine security drill.
Yeah, they didn't even tell their own guys.
Right. The officers on the ground didn't even know who their actual target was until just before the green light was given.
Because they were waiting for a very specific, incredibly narrow window. They waited until the early hours of the morning when Wangchuk's closest aide, a man named Ahijit Dipke, stepped away from the stage to use the washroom.
Wow.
The second his primary protector was gone, the police moved in. At 6:30 a.m., that white curtain we discussed is raised.
And there are also allegations, which, the police have not officially confirmed, that a mobile phone jammer was activated near the site the exact moment the curtain went up, instantly killing any chance of the students live streaming the event.
Which is terrifyingly efficient.
It is. In the span of just 30 seconds, hidden entirely from view, Wangchuk is moved into a pre-parked ambulance waiting down the street near Kerala House.
And the extraction phase is really where the logistical power of the state just flexes. To ensure there was no chance of a mob blocking the vehicle, the Delhi traffic police had already preemptively cleared a roughly 8-kilometer route straight through the heart of the city to Safdarjung Hospital.
So they didn't even have to slow down.
No, the ambulance proceeded without stopping at a single intersection.
It is surgical. It is an overwhelming, basically awe-inspiring application of state logistics. But that brings us to the most jarring part of this entire deep dive.
Right.
We know a meticulously planned operation occurred. We know an ambulance drove 8 kilometers. But what actually happened in those 30 seconds behind that white curtain? Because depending on who you ask in this documentary, you get a tale of two completely irreconcilable realities.
And again, it is crucial to remind our listeners that we are strictly reporting the claims as they exist in the documentary script. We are analyzing the narratives, not validating them.
Absolutely. So let's start with the official narrative. The Deputy Commissioner of Police for New Delhi, Sachin Sharma, stated publicly that the entire move was completely compliant with Delhi High Court orders.
Right, the court order we mentioned earlier.
Exactly. According to the state, this was done strictly on the advice of medical experts because Wangchuk's health was severely deteriorating after 21 days without food. Sharma mentioned that there was a, quote, slight commotion when a few waking protesters tried to obstruct the officers, but he insisted that the police exercise maximum restraint and successfully carried out a necessary, safe medical rescue.
Now, contrast that with the protesters' account, which paints a drastically different, much more violent picture. Witnesses who were sleeping near the stage, speaking to reporters afterward, they described the operation not as a medical rescue, but as an aggressive kidnapping.
Yeah, they alleged that as the plainclothes officers moved in, students were violently shoved, struck, dragged across the pavement, and verbally abused.
Which completely contradicts the maximum restraint claim.
Completely. They also claimed that when a bystander woke up and tried to record the incident on their phone, the device was immediately snatched from their hands and physically smashed on the ground by police.
And the core justification for the raid, which is Wangchuk's failing health, is also heavily disputed by his camp. His supporters point out that his vital signs have been checked the day before and were reportedly completely normal for someone in his condition.
Interesting.
Yeah, and most importantly, they claim that no doctor had actually examined him that morning before the police intervened. To them, the medical excuse was just a legal cover story to dismantle the camp.
Which really makes you step back and question the nature of truth in our modern era. Think about this. We are talking about the year 2026. This is an era where quite literally every single human being has a high-definition, cloud-connected camera in their pocket.
Everyone is a broadcaster.
Exactly. The democratization of footage was supposed to make secret police actions basically impossible. And yet, a major public event involving dozens of officers and protesters right in the center of the Capitol can still yield two completely unverifiable realities. Why? Because the state deployed a cheap piece of white fabric and allegedly flipped a switch on a radio signal jammer.
That's wild.
The sheer simplicity of the technology used to blind the public and control the narrative is just staggering.
This raises an important question, which really serves as the beating heart of the documentary's script. Was this an act of urgent medical rescue, or was it a calculated tactical silencing of a political threat?
Right.
And the complicated reality of studying statecraft is that both things could theoretically contain elements of truth. I mean, a man on day 21 of a water fast is undeniably in a precarious, potentially fatal medical state, and a court did mandate that his health be monitored.
Sure, but on the flip side, the psychology of using a curtain instead of the standard, public arrest is really telling. An open arrest creates a martyr,
Yeah.
It creates a photo op of a man being dragged away for his beliefs.
It's spectacle.
Exactly. A white curtain creates a void, a disappearance. And a void is much harder for a movement to rally around. The sheer tactical force, the timing, the jammers, it suggests an operation designed not just to save a failing body, but to decisively erase a political spectacle before it could grow any larger.
And if the goal was erasure, the immediate aftermath shows just how quickly the state can rewrite physical reality. Because by 9:00 a.m., mere hours after the ambulance sped away, the open, chaotic protest camp at Jantar Mantar was completely gone.
Just vanished.
In its place, the authorities had erected 10-foot-tall steel barricades, securing the entire area with hundreds of uniformed police personnel and riot vehicles. The space was sterilized.
You can't just sterilize human anger. Remember that earlier analogy about the mechanical fulcrum and the pressure cooker?
Yeah.
The state thought they were removing the safety valve to quiet the hissing noise of the protest. But the heat inside the system actually spiked. When Wangchuk's aide, PG Dipke, returned from the washroom to find the stage gone and the barricades up, he immediately announced that he was starting his own indefinite hunger strike right there on the other side of the steel.
Which shows that the physical space was reclaimed by the police, but the political momentum just fractured and spread outward. Opposition politicians immediately seized on the imagery of a pre-dawn plainclothes raid.
The optics were terrible for the government.
Exactly. Notice how the demands shifted. The anger from the youth that was originally aimed squarely at the education minister over leaked exams suddenly started shifting much higher up the political chain, targeting the home ministry and the police apparatus. The operation itself became the new grievance.
Meanwhile, a bizarre, almost Kafkaesque limbo developed a few miles away at Safdardan Hospital. Hundreds of supporters gathered outside the emergency block, but nobody seemed to know what Wangchuk's actual legal status was.
Yeah, it was total confusion.
Was he formally arrested? Was he detained under preventative laws? Or was he simply, as the police vaguely phrased it, shifted for treatment? Even his closest allies and his legal team were left entirely in the dark, unable to reach him.
Which forces us to look very closely at the timing of all this. July 18th was not a random Tuesday. The removal happened exactly 2 days before a massive, highly anticipated joint protest march that the youth organizers and Ladakh activists had been building toward for weeks.
Oh, wow. I mean, if you're planning a major march, losing your most famous figurehead 48 hours before step-off is a devastating logistical blow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the proximity of that date is impossible to ignore. It directly mirrors a historical pattern of how the state manages Sonam Wangchuk's visibility.
Oh, right, the previous march.
Yeah, think back to the Padayatra, the massive foot march we discussed earlier. When he and his fellow Ladakhi activists tried to march on Delhi years prior, they were preemptively stopped at the border and detained before they could create a lasting spectacle in the capital. The state has a well-documented history of neutralizing his arrivals.
The difference on July 18th wasn't the intent to manage his visibility. It was the environment they had to do it in, executing a multi-layered pre-dawn extraction from behind a white curtain in the absolute center of Delhi, just days before a massive planned march. It suggests a strategy aimed at decapitating the leadership of a merged protest movement right before it could reach its boiling point.
Absolutely. So, to summarize the arc we've traced today, we started with an engineer fighting for indigenous constitutional protections in a remote Himalayan desert. That deeply regional grievance traveled hundreds of miles to the capital, collided with a furious national student movement over corrupted medical exams, and escalated into a high-stakes standoff. And it all culminated in a 30-second clash between the overwhelming logistical power of the modern state and the fragile, starving body of a single civil disobedient.
It really is a profound masterclass in modern narrative warfare. I mean, if you take anything away from this deep dive, let it be an understanding of how narratives are controlled, contested, and documented in real time.
Yeah, it's all about who tells the story.
Exactly. It shows how the exact same 30 seconds of action can be flawlessly framed as either a benevolent medical rescue or a brutal political suppression, depending entirely on which side of the white curtain you're standing on.
And when the physical stage is dismantled that quickly, the narrative becomes the only territory left for anyone to fight over.
Which brings me to a final thought I really want to leave you with, something for you to chew on long after we finish up today. The documentary script notes that Sonam Wangchuk has historically ended his fasts by promising the public that the fight isn't over, that they will return to the streets.
Right.
But look at what happened here. The state was able to deploy mobile jammers, erect 10-foot steel barricades, and physically erase an entire entrenched protest camp from the map in a matter of hours. So in an era where physical space can be dominated so quickly and so absolutely by authorities, does the true battleground of resistance even exist on the pavement anymore?
That's a great question.
Or has the front line permanently moved? Is the real protest now entirely in the digital memory? In the fiercely contested accounts, the smuggled audio, and the documentary evidence of events exactly like this 30-second operation?
It's a haunting reality, honestly. We build walls in the real world, but the wars are won in the cloud.
Definitely something to think about, especially the next time you find yourself walking down an empty city street in the pre-dawn dark and you see a piece of white fabric fluttering in the wind.